Thank you for joining us today for today's daily Bible reading. We're in the middle of a series called What Happy Couples Know, looking at what happy couples know and how those lessons can be applied to many different relationships in our lives. And one of my favorite lessons that I've learned from this series so far is that all of my hopes, all of my dreams, all of my desires, that if I kind of just dump those onto my wife, Alicia, they can become expectations. And that's a big burden for her to carry, one that she shouldn't have to carry. But in life, we're all going to have unmet hopes, unmet dreams, unmet desires. And when those things go unmet and they create a burden in our lives, what do we do with those? And we're going to be tackling a little bit of that this weekend in service. But right now, let's take a look at Matthew chapter 11 for one of my favorite passages in the Bible. This is what Jesus says. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And like I said, this is one of my favorite passages in the entire Bible. And Jesus addresses this situation with which most of us, I think, could identify. Like if Jesus were talking to us and asked, "Raise your hands if you're feeling tired or weary and run down," I think most of us would probably raise our hands. And sometimes that weariness comes from this burden of unmet expectations. Because no matter where we're at in life, we all have hopes, we all have dreams, we all have desires, and maybe those hopes, maybe those dreams, maybe those desires didn't come to fruition in our lives. And so we're burdened by all these what ifs, these hopes that never came to be, these dreams that were never realized. And we might carry that burden. We might carry some expectation that we didn't live up to the person that we wanted to be. And so some of our weariness, some of our burden might come from just trying to live up to those, or trying to carry those things that we never saw happen in our lives. I think a lot of times in our marriages or our closest relationships, we might try to dump those burdens on somebody else. And that's not fair to our spouses. That's not fair to our best friends, especially not fair to our kids. So what do we do with those? What do we do with the burden of unmet expectations? And this is where Jesus enters. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Jesus will give us rest from whatever burdens we're carrying. If we're carrying the burden of unmet hopes, unmet expectations for our lives, we can give those to Jesus. Because he loves us. He accepts us just as we are. We can rest in his presence, not feeling like we have to pretend to be somebody else or try to be something that we're not. So how can you accept Jesus' invitation today? What burdens are you carrying that you could exchange for the unconditional love of Jesus Christ? Because Jesus doesn't love you if you do this, or this. Jesus doesn't love you more if you meet certain expectations. Jesus loves you just as you are. And this is a lesson that I've learned in my life. For many years, I was a youth pastor, and so much of my life was trying to live up to all these expectations that I thought people had of me, expectations that I created that didn't even exist, and I was crushed underneath the burden of those. But in recent years, I've been able to accept Jesus' invitation to let those burdens go and simply find rest with him. So what burden might you need to lay down at Jesus' feet? What unmet expectation, unmet hope, unmet dream, unmet desire do you need to lay down at Jesus' feet and just trust that he will allow you to rest in his unconditional love? Thank you for joining us today. See you real soon.